I was humiliated!
Is Sister Sage actually loyal to Homelander? Or is she quietly orchestrating the biggest betrayal in the boys? Because the more you look at her actions, the less they feel like support, and the more they start to look like something far more calculated. Something that doesn't just challenge Homelander, but slowly positions him for a fall he won't even see coming. At first glance, Sage appears to be exactly what Homelander wants. Someone intelligent, composed, and willing to help him navigate a world that's becoming harder to control. But that's exactly why her presence is so dangerous, because she understands him on a level almost no one else does. And that kind of understanding doesn't just create loyalty, it creates opportunity. Homelander has always been defined by raw power, by dominance, by the ability to force outcomes through strength and fear. But Sage operates in a completely different way. She doesn't need to overpower him, she just needs to outthink him. And that's a kind of threat he's never really had to deal with before. What makes this theory so unsettling is that Sage's intelligence isn't just about solving problems. It's about predicting behavior, understanding patterns, and setting up outcomes, long before anyone realizes what's happening. And if that's the case, then every decision she's influencing, every piece of advice she's giving, could be part of something much bigger. Instead of asking whether Sage is helping Homelander, the better question might be why she's helping him in the first place. Because someone with her level of intelligence wouldn't blindly follow a volatile, unpredictable figure like Homelander without a deeper reason. And when you start thinking about that, it opens the door to a much darker possibility. That Sage isn't trying to stabilize Homelander's power, she's trying to guide it to a breaking point, pushing him just far enough, just publicly enough, that the system around him begins to collapse under its own weight. Homelander has always walked a thin line between being a hero and being exposed for what he really is, and every time that line gets crossed, the consequences ripple outward, affecting not just him, but Vought International as well, and that's where Sage's potential plan becomes even more dangerous, because taking down Homelander alone isn't enough to change the world of the boys. The real power structure sits with Vought, the corporation that created him, controlled him, and profited from him, and if Sage truly wants to reshape that world, she would need to bring both down at the same time.
Is that people don't hate me enough?
Your numbers are north of 96.
Anyone can smile for the pollsters, sure, but...
The easiest way to do that wouldn't be through direct confrontation. It would be through exposure, through carefully orchestrated moments that reveal just enough truth to destroy public trust while keeping the chaos contained long enough for the system to crumble. And this is where Homelander's biggest weakness becomes the key to everything, because for all his power, he is incredibly predictable when it comes to his need for validation and control. He reacts emotionally, he escalates when challenged, and he constantly seeks reassurance that he is loved and feared in equal measure, and those traits make him easy to manipulate for someone like Sage. If she understands exactly how he will respond in any given situation, then she can start setting traps that don't look like traps.
She's the world's smartest person. She's not smart enough to know when to shut her mouth.
Situations where Homelander believes he is asserting dominance when, in reality, he is walking directly into a narrative that makes him look more unstable, more dangerous, and more impossible to defend. Over time, those moments could stack, building a version of Homelander that even his supporters can't ignore, and once that happens, Vought's ability to protect him starts to fall apart as well. But the most insane part of this theory isn't just that Sage might be planning to take down Homelander, it's what comes after, because someone who is capable of dismantling a figure like him and like Vought wouldn't do it without a clear idea of what replaces them, and that raises a much bigger question about her true goal. Is she trying to create a better system, something more stable and controlled? Or is she positioning herself to take control of that power vacuum? Because if Sage succeeds, she doesn't just remove the most dangerous man in the world, she removes the structure that allowed him to exist in the first place. And that creates an opening for something entirely new, something that could be even more calculated, more controlled, and potentially more dangerous in a different way. There's also the possibility that Sage's plan doesn't rely on a single moment of betrayal, but on a series of small, almost invisible moves that only make sense when you look at them all together. Subtle shifts in strategy, carefully chosen words, and decisions that seem logical in the moment but lead to unintended consequences later. And if that's true, then the betrayal isn't something that will suddenly happen. It's something that has already started, something that has been unfolding quietly in the background while everyone focuses on the more obvious conflicts. That kind of long-term strategy would fit perfectly with someone of her intelligence, because the smartest move isn't to fight the strongest opponent head-on. It's to make sure they defeat themselves. And when you really think about it, that might be exactly what's happening. Homelander doesn't need to be physically overpowered if he can be pushed into a position where his own actions destroy everything he's built. His image, his support, his connection to the public, and ultimately, his value to Vought. Because once that value disappears, so does the protection that comes with it. In that scenario, Sage doesn't have to win a fight. She just has to create the conditions where Homelander loses everything that makes him untouchable. And that's a much more terrifying kind of power, because it doesn't rely on strength at all. It relies on inevitability. So the real question isn't whether Sister Sage will betray Homelander. It's whether she already has, and whether every step he's taking right now is part of a plan he was never meant to understand. Because if that's true, then Homelander isn't at the top of the food chain anymore. He's just the final piece in a much larger strategy, one that could bring down not just him, but Vought International itself, and replace it with something no one is prepared for.